The fighting in Lebanon is intensifying. Overnight Israeli airstrikes on the heart of capital Beirut killed at least 9 people. Israel has warned more people to evacuate in southern Lebanon, signaling a broadening of its ground incursion in the country, which began earlier this week. At least 76 villages in southern Lebanon have now been issued evacuation notices, warning Lebanese citizens, for your safety, you must evacuate your homes immediately and move to the north of the Avali River. Save your lives. On Wednesday, the Israeli Defense Forces announced the death of 8 of their soldiers inside Lebanon. The Israeli military claims it has killed 15 members of Hezbollah in an overnight airstrike. Significantly, it has also announced that 3 months ago, it killed 3 senior Hamas leaders in Gaza, including Ravi Mushtaha, the head of the Hamas government in the Gaza Strip. The IDF says they were hiding in an underground compound in northern Gaza and were killed by airstrikes. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has said Israeli forces attempted to advance at the Fatima border crossing but were confronted by its fighters. The Fatima gate has remained closed since Israeli troops withdrew from Lebanon in 2000. Hezbollah has also announced that it has fired more rockets on Israel, targeting an Israeli settlement in the country's north, as well as a military outpost, saying the attacks are in support of Palestinians in Gaza and in response to the brutal Israeli aggression. The IDF has announced it is sending an additional division to participate in its ground war in Lebanon, while reiterating that the campaign is limited, localized and targeted. For the people of Lebanon, however, it's been one night of terror after another. What scared many in downtown Beirut is that for the first time, a missile strike targeted a building in a central part of the city. The target was a building that a former parliament member of Hezbollah was living in. It's also the headquarters for a medical center affiliated to Hezbollah. The building is located in an area that was considered a safe zone up till now due to its Christian majority population. But now, with every passing day, any feeling of safety is fast vanishing in all parts of Beirut. Thousands of people are fleeing Lebanon as Israel carries out its heaviest bombardment of the country since 2006. Scores of flights carrying Lebanese citizens escaping the Israeli airstrikes have arrived in Cyprus. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced in the country in recent weeks amid the latest conflict, including more than 100,000 people, mostly Lebanese and Syrians, who have fled across the border into Syria, according to the United Nations. Israel's strikes have killed more than 1,000 people in Lebanon and displaced about 1 million residents since it escalated its war with Hezbollah. The devastating Israeli strikes against Hezbollah have given Israel the upper hand as it edges towards a direct confrontation with the militant group's backers in Iran. Israel's assassination of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and multiple heavy hits to the militia over the past 2 weeks have signaled a tectonic shift in regional power dynamics, say experts. Some of them argue, now that Israel has decapitated Hezbollah and greatly degraded it, it feels Hezbollah is no longer a major threat, and therefore it is now focused on going after Iran itself. And that tectonic shift is one where Iran no longer has the balance of power or balance of deterrence between Iran and Israel. Now, in the aftermath of Tuesday night's Iranian missile attack on Israel, the Israeli War Cabinet is weighing its response. Iran launched a salvo of about 200 ballistic missiles at Israeli military targets, sending sirens blaring across Israel and activating the country's sophisticated defense systems. Iran's military chief has warned of broader strikes if Israel retaliates. People in Tehran are on edge and fears of a wider all-out war between the two regional military powerhouses are growing. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has termed the attack a big mistake by Iran, saying it will pay for it. Israel's UN ambassador, Danny Danon, has said the Israeli response will be a very strong and painful one, and it will be soon. US President Joe Biden has said he does not support a potential Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear sites. Asked whether Israel is heeding the US president's message that Iran's nuclear sites should not be targeted, the Israeli envoy to the United Nations has said it should be the responsibility of the US and other Western democracies to block Iran from achieving nuclear capabilities, otherwise it will be too late. Meanwhile, Lebanon's foreign minister Abdullah Abu Habib has claimed that Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, had actually agreed to a 21-day ceasefire just days before he was assassinated by Israel. The temporary ceasefire was called for by US President Joe Biden, his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, and other allies during last week's UN General Assembly. There are many who say the United States' ability to control Israel's military strategy is quite limited, even as US officials are calling for a de-escalation in Israel's growing conflict with Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. This despite the fact that the United States is Israel's most important ally and biggest supplier of arms. In the days after Hamas's 7th October attack on Israel, there were widespread fears of regional war. Many said the conflict would not be contained within Gaza. Hezbollah would attack Israel from the north, the Houthis from Yemen, and Iranian proxies from Iraq. Israel would be forced to respond. It would come into direct conflict with Iran, and a much wider war would erupt. Nearly 1 year later, all those things have come to pass. A day after Iran launched its largest ever ballistic missile attack on Israel, and as Israeli troops battle Hezbollah fighters on the ground in Lebanon, the regional war that the world was fearing is effectively upon us. In the wake of the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, Netanyahu had said, and I quote, "The elimination of Nasrallah is a necessary condition in achieving the objectives we have set, returning the residents of the north safely to their homes and changing the balance of power in the region for years to come." 2 days later, Netanyahu directly addressed the people of Iran, saying, when Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is among those strongly pushing for a maximalist position. He argues that Iran's two arms to fight Israel, Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, are temporarily paralyzed. So it's like a boxer out in the ring without arms for the next few minutes. Now's the time that we can attack because Iran is fully vulnerable. He added, it's time to neutralize the whole axis of evil. We started with Hamas, then Hezbollah. It's now time for Iran, maybe even Syria. Of course, such a response carries with it the danger of the unknown. Hezbollah is weakened, but no one knows how much capacity it still has. The US government believes that Iran could build a bomb in just weeks once it decides to do so. Short of the nuclear option, Tehran has other ways of applying further pressure on Israel and its allies. Escalating responses could spiral completely out of control and drag allies like the United States into the conflict.